Hey, thanks for joining today. If you are just now joining and you're over on YouTube, then if you're brand new, I would appreciate it if you would subscribe, and that way you don't miss any of the live streams that we'll be doing. If you are subscribed already, then I appreciate you being here. And if you're a regular and you're out there and you can hear me, if you could let me know in the chat, I would appreciate it. All right, so Shiny is there. Thank you, Shiny. Give me that sound check there. If you're over on Facebook, welcome to you as well. All right, so we're continuing with this portrait challenge, and I believe I was using uh, my Carmine Lake over here in this area, and I think that's kind of where we ended up. We started focusing on some other areas a little bit, but I wanted to get back over to this core shadow shape over here and just start filling some of that in. Now, I will tell you, if you're brand new to the new set of luminance colors, I'll hold these two up right here. There's a dark flesh, which is 748, and there is 575, which is Carmine Lake. And honestly, there's not a whole lot of difference between the two. Let me see if I can grab a scrap sheet of paper here just to show you what I'm talking about. If I hold this up, maybe you can see this, but this is my dark flesh. And I'm going to put Carmine Lake right beside it. So there's not a whole lot of difference. I'll zoom in just a little bit here so you can see that better. Hey, good morning, Linda, over there on Facebook. Hopefully you can see that. And, there's just not a whole lot of difference. So, my recommendation, if you don't want to get the entire set, you do get a little bit of a discount on that 20 set. There's a 20 set box of the new luminance colors. There's also an additional 4, so you have 24 of this portrait set that they came out with. But if it's a matter of, you know, just wanting to try them out and choose a few here and there, then try one or the other, you know. And I think you'll be good to go, and you'll be able to experience um, just about the same color out of both of those. Yeah, it's a very very dark color, Shiny. Yeah, you're pretty correct. It's nearly it's nearly that dark. Not quite, but it gets close. So with the composition that I'm doing, I do want to do a little bit of the hair over here on this side, and I'm going to fade this out into nothing. That way, we're concentrating on features only, but we're incorporating some of the other elements of portraiture inside here. So that would include, um, didn't know we were that zoomed in. Let me zoom back out just a little bit. Um, but that would include the hair. But I'm not going to be drawing a whole lot of the chin and those areas. So I'm going to fade this out. Hopefully that will become more apparent as we work through this. So, hey, Nancy. Nancy is also over there on YouTube Live. Appreciate you being here. Okay. We'll go over to this one. It might help see it a little bit better. Shiny's asking which pencil I'm using. Using Carmine Lake at the moment. Um, yeah, so if you want something, the dark flesh is just a little tiny bit darker, in my opinion. It's also um, just a slight different temperature than the Carmine Lake is. And just a reminder, I'm working on Stonehenge paper. I'm using the warm white color, so it has a bit of a tint to it. It's not really a white. Yeah, a lot of these. Good point, Shiny. Saying the Carmine Lake would be good for animal fur. A lot of these colors for portraits would be good for pet portraits as well. I'm going to move down here. Now, where I'm getting into this area that I've already got my polychromos burnt sienna um, down as an initial layer, then the pencil adheres to the paper a little differently. And actually, it goes on a little bit better, a little more even distribution. The reason for that is because, pardon me, is because I was um, very cautious and I laid in that polychromos color in a very even and a very, it's just very focused on getting it down there uh, very evenly. And then I used a brush, if you recall, if you watched that live stream. The more care that you take in your initial layer, getting that on there very, very evenly, where you've got an even distribution of that pigment layer or that pencil layer on the paper, then you're going to notice a big difference when you're adding subsequent layers on top. It makes a huge difference. I used to get impatient when I was putting that initial layer on there, and I've learned to slow down and to take my time and to not get in a hurry. There's a time to get in a hurry on a drawing, and there's a time to slow down and focus. And the line drawing is a time to really focus, and then the initial layer that you put down is really a time to take your time, make sure that it is laid down very evenly, and that you don't have little clumps of pigment building up, depending on what surface you're on, obviously. Um, but that's what I've noticed for myself is that it really made a difference when I started slowing down. I started paying attention to what I was doing and making sure that the pigment layer or the initial pencil layer that I put down was very evenly distributed on the surface of the tooth of the paper. And guess what happened after a while when I started learning how to slow down, I got faster at doing that. Now, it wasn't a whole lot faster. It wasn't as fast as what I really wanted, but it is faster. But that's only because, if you do something a lot, you get faster at it, right? So I think that's the reason why I got faster. Not because I was focused on speed, but because I was focused on the process and trying to make it as even as possible, and just focused on doing things well. And there are side benefits when we slow down and do that. Okay. So this is my darkest area over here. It's going to fade over into a lighter area. So I want to think about that. I want to have that thought in my mind as I'm building this up. The other thing I'm doing is I'm fading it out down here. Okay, I'm not drawing a complete portrait, right? So I'm going to fade that darkness, this dark value, into a lighter value down here. So if I've got a dark value pencil in my hand, then I want to think about that. I want to think about the fact that I'm going to fade that away into the paper as I get down there close to the bottom. Same thing up here. I'm going to fade into the paper. Pardon me. Now, there's this saying in colored pencil, kind of a belief or something. I mean, it's not everyone's opinion, but there is sort of this um, opinion out there that you've got to complete the entire saturation of the paper, for it to be a viable drawing, or for it to be something that is compelling and convincing. Fill in the blank. And I don't think that's always necessarily the case. Um, you can there's room for a lot of different styles and different approaches, and so I I got to tell you, I love seeing pieces that are just hyper realistic, and it just fills in all the tooth. I love seeing that. I love doing that. But I also enjoy some of those other styles where you can see some of the gestural strokes of the pencil. You can see the paper underneath. Um, that's exciting to me as well, where you can kind of get a sense of the medium. So, hey, Harry, how are you? Good to see you out here. Yeah, and so it's it's just fun to have so many different styles and different techniques um, in the community of colored pencil. And I think when we embrace all those differences that we have, um, then what happens is it helps to elevate the medium even more, because it'll appeal to a wider audience, right? When we do that, rather than just a very narrow niche. Um, so it's something I try to keep in mind for myself. Okay. So this area right here, there's a shadow represented, and then as it moves down, it it fades out. So I want to make sure that I'm focused on that as I push my way down here. and fading this out with this dark value pencil, right? Now, sometimes if you think about this, you may be thinking, well, um, by the time you get other layers on top, is it going to matter? You know, by the time you add 10 more layers on top of all this, is that really going to matter? Some of the bottom layers, some of this third, fourth, fifth layers, yes, will matter. Um, how much does it matter? I don't know if I can quantify that, but what I will tell you is the process makes a difference to me as the artist. And so if I'm um, training myself how to process through the mechanics of it, right? Then there is something I think that can be gained by me processing through it in a particular way. Um, and if I remain true to that process, then the result I can kind of predict, right? And so to answer that question, it's a question um, that I often get is, well, what does it matter if the top layers, those final layers that you put on, cover up everything underneath? Depending on the surface that you're working on, that's not always necessarily true. In other words, I think that these initial layers that are mostly working in value, especially the dark layers, right? They're working in value. They do show towards the end. To what degree do they show? Is it real obvious that they're um, showing underneath? Well, we could debate that all day, right? But yes, I think they do make a difference and they do show. But I also think that it's a signal to me as the artist that tells me something about the process, that this is the way to process through this. You know, is this the technique? Is this the only technique, or is it the best technique? No, I would never claim that either. It is one technique. I think it's a very simplified way of processing through a drawing that can give you some fantastic results, in my opinion. And I think it's much simpler than some other methods. So, okay, let me take a look here. Yeah, I want to get more of that Herculaneum red over here as well. We'll do that in a little bit. We'll come back over here and darken this up. Debating on whether I should use a little bit of solvent over here on the edge, and I may do that. I'm just not sure yet. The other thing that is a good practice to do at this point, you see how I'm encroaching on this little edge over here, this little line? What I could do right now is I could use a lighter color, like a white or a cream or something like that, and draw in that area to protect it. That does protect it a little bit. You can still draw on top of it, but it will protect the paper underneath in case I ever want to get back down to that initial paper color and then go on top again. So So I'm going to clean that edge up a little bit because this is where I'm going to have a little bit of hair out here. I'm afraid I'm going to muddy up my drawing. I need to grab my glassine paper. Sometimes I forget to grab that. Okay. Now some of this hair will come right down inside here as well. And a tool I like to use for that is the little rectangular Mono Zero eraser. I think it works really well for things like that. And one thing to do with that, I want to show you what I'm doing here, is I like to cut this edge and have it angled just a little bit. That way I've got a really nice edge on it. I can push that out a little bit more. I can come back in here. And I want to grab it right in here when I make these marks. If I try to use this end of it, this piece is flexible and it moves around. So I have to put my hand up here to keep it stationary from twisting on me. Fold this open a little bit more. Now it's not going to come off as easily as this would if we were using graphite. But if we keep working at it, it will come off enough. And we have to remember that this is going to be a relatively lighter value. It's not going to be as bright as the white of the paper. The dark area in the skin over here will be a whole lot darker than what it is right now as well. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay. I can use my kneaded eraser, come in there and clean that up a little bit as well. And if I want it to be a little bit lighter than what it is, and I think I do. Let me see if I can zoom in just a little bit more for you here. And move this over a little bit. might help. It's about as good as I'm going to be able to get it because I'm at the top of my frame. I can't reposition the camera. But I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to push just a little bit harder. First. There we go. Blow that away. That doesn't always get rid of everything. As you might notice, there's a little bit of debris from the eraser still there. Okay. Now I can come in here with my Pablo white. And I can color this white a little bit. It may look, very dark even now still on this surface. This may give us a better view of what I'm doing. But when we surround this with darker colors, then it will appear to be lighter than what it does right now. Okay, there's a little bit of a blonde streak right up here. So I'm going to add a little more of that lighter color right there. Okay, the drawing isn't really going to be going up quite that high anyway. So I can clean up this edge over here by adding this white right in here. And I can fade that out by adding a few more strokes into that area. Okay. I think that should be sufficient for what we want to do. All right. Yeah. The slice knife, the slice knife does work. Yeah, in doing that. Good point, Harry. But the problem is that I don't hardly have any pigment on the paper yet. So I'm trying to use other means right now. Slice knife, in my experience, works really well when you've got more pigment on the paper and you're getting something back. And we may use it later on because we're going to now make this hair more thin, and then we can come back in there. We may even go into some of the area that we lightened up, but we can come back in here later with the slice tool if we want to. Yeah, that was a great question, Harry. I should have pointed that out. So I'm glad you brought it up. Let me zoom back out a little bit here. There we go. Okay, so really this area right here, I want to look at that overall shape right here. Yeah, this area is going to be much darker right here. So I can dedicate a little bit of that right over there. And just say this is very, very dark right here. And we're going to have hair that sort of borders and shapes what we're looking at right there. Okay, and this would be a good area to use some solvent in. And, when you use solvent, even in these areas, um, because I use those Pablo pencils, it's going to stay more in place and adhere to that surface than if I had used polychromos or something like that. So I think I'll go ahead and do that. It'll just help to speed that part of it up and saturate the area. So not going to use a lot of solvent, just a little bit. And after we've done this, then we'll have to leave this part alone, let it sit there and dry before we go back. Okay. Let's move this up just a little bit right here. All right, that ought to do that. Now, when you're done using your solvent, what I like to do is go ahead and dip the brush into the solvent a few times, press it up against the side, and then dab it a little bit. Make sure I got most of the color off of there, because it actually is cleaning your brush. And then I can lay that brush aside and allow it to dry. All right. So now that we dampened that area with solvent, we want to leave it alone. And instead, let's focus over here. Go back over here. Oh, you know what would be fun, though, is add a little bit of color to the lips. Let's just do that. All right. So okay, let's see. So Lisa is asking any way you can adjust the reference photo so we can see what you're working on. Yeah, I didn't realize that I got off the frame there in that reference. I can't do it at the moment, but you can go over to sharpenedartist.com, click on, or it's slash live streams is the link. The reference photo is over there. The full reference photo that we're working on, I believe. If not, I'll take a look at that after we're done as well. But the other thing is, this is over there in Monthly Sharpener as well, the full resolution reference of this drawing, or of the reference rather. And there was one other thing I was going to say about that. Oh, yeah. So you could just crop that. Yeah, you're welcome, Lisa. I believe it might be under learning, sharpenedartist.com. And if you look at the menu, go under learning, and then I think the bottom area is live streams, I think. If I'm remembering it correctly. We're actually going to be revising the site soon, so I can't wait for that. It's been a long time since we made changes over there. Okay, let's get some of this color in. Now, what I want to do when I'm adding this color is I want to think about still where the darkest values are first in each section that I'm working on. And I want to get an even distribution of this layer. So all I've got on here right now is, my initial layer, that grisaille method of laying in the darkest value. And so now when I'm adding this color on top, I'm still not that far away from thinking about, a grisaille method. So I still want to think about where the darkest shadows are first, where are the darkest values first, in other words, and apply my next layer of color in those areas. The top lip is always going to be darker than the bottom lip. So I want to start there. And then the edges, corners of the mouth, are always going to be darker, typically going to be darker than anything else in the mouth. So I started over there. And, I'll move back over there as well and darken that up. And then we're going to add different colors on top to make sure that, that's very dark. That's a very dark area. Using the Anthraquinone um, Carmine pencil by Caran d'Ache, number 580. That's the color we're using right now. That little separation in the lips, separating the top from the bottom lip, has often a little tiny bit of what we would identify as a line. And so I don't want to depict it though as a line. I want to depict it instead as an edge, right? Because it represents a particular value. And that's the reason why we call it a line, is because it's separating one value from another. And so our convention, the thing that we've thought of, the thing that we use to describe that is, that little four-letter word line, Line. And if for drawing for maybe a coloring book for a child or something, then lines are an awesome thing, and we can use them to create something, an outline. But if we're wanting something to look more and more like reality, then in my opinion, we kind of want to get rid of lines, and instead we want to depict edges. If something looks to us to be a line, if we interpret it as a line, then instead I want to tell my mind, okay, I'm seeing an edge then that's bordering, this particular value is bordered by another value. And so there, that creates that edge. All right. So it's going to be really dark over here. Now, this is one of those areas where, we can start um, qualifying something as an ugly stage, because I'm not going to fill in the full value of this pencil color to depict something as dark as what it will be, because there are other pencil colors that are darker in value that will do that job for me. So this will look a little bit off. It's not going to look quite as dark as I want it to be by the time we're done, because I'm going to reserve that area for a darker pencil. I do want to pay attention to this little bit of, there's a shape right here within this shape that is showing a lot of light reflection. So I will try to pay attention to that. And on this side, that's probably a good um, time to go ahead and get rid of more of that blue that I laid down initially right there. And we'll work our way back over here. Yeah, this area right in here um, is such a soft, subtle gradation from the lip line, if you want to call it that, a lip color, into this area underneath the lips. So if you look at the color version of the reference and you squint your eyes, you blur what you're looking at, then you nearly cannot tell because you're actually creating one value out of this particular area. You can't tell where the lips begin and where they end. So that really is just saying to me that, this value underneath here needs to be nearly equal to the value of that bottom edge of the lip. But it's easy sometimes to forget that and to just start, depicting um, a line down here for the lips, and that would, that could lead to some things that would look really odd. Really, it could start, making this look like there's just a ton of lipstick on here, something like that. So not a bad option if that's what you're doing. If you're drawing, a whole lot of lipstick um, caked on lips, and that's a good approach to do, is to actually create a line. But if that's not what you're doing, then that isn't what I want to do to show that soft, subtle gradation from one color and one value to the next. It's going to look as though it just kind of moves into the bottom of of the mouth, right above the chin, and there's hardly any separation. So I just have to keep that in my head, keep that in my thoughts as I'm working my way down there. So even with my red on this side, I'm going to incorporate some of this color even beyond where I feel like a lip boundary would be. Okay, now we can pull out um, our Carmine Lake again, and I can darken up some of these areas. I need to sharpen that. There we go. So it's going to be darker on the edges, those corners. And then it's often darker right here, right before we get to the center. There's a little bit of a cast shadow often on the bottom lip to help separate um, where that separation in the lips is, and so I can use that darker value just a little bit on this bottom lip. That will help create that illusion right there. That the top lip is shading the bottom lip. I'm gonna darken it up a little bit more over here. Work my way back, and then I want to use this dark value on the lips over here in this area, since this is the shadow side of the face, and it'll be the shadow side of this feature as well. It's going to be a little bit darker on this side of the lips, right? Underneath here, it's going to be a little bit darker because the lips, bottom lip, it sticks out in this area, it protrudes just a little bit. So I want to make sure that I indicate that right there. And then because of the way that the mouth is positioned and the round, um, this is a very, very round feature of the face. Then I've got a little swoop that often happens right in here. And so I want to pay attention to the way this particular mouth is angled and formed. And so I'm looking at that shadow shape right there. And so I don't want to create a line there either, but I do want to indicate a slightly darker value in that area. And then softly apply that darker value even beyond where I can identify it, right? Okay, and because I'm fading out my drawing down here, then I'm not going to linger a whole lot right in here. Just a little tiny bit. Put some of this in here. And move this down just a little bit. Add a little darker layer right there. Reposition my hand so that I can get a smoother transition right here. There we go. It's a little bit better. So how many of you guys are drawing this particular drawing? This was I think it started out being the March challenge over there in Monthly Sharpener. But, we were doing so many other things as well that went ahead and extended that um, into May or April, I guess. And now we're in May. So I may be off on my months, but I think it was March that we started it. I believe so. So I didn't know. I know there are several who are drawing this. I don't know if any of you guys today joining me out here are drawing this particular drawing, but I think it's a good exercise in understanding value and looking at these transitions. Certainly, I think because of where it's cropped, a good one to do for if you're wanting to practice features of the face. So if you're wanting to focus on eyes and nose and the mouth, I think it'd be a great one. Ah, very cool, Harry. Awesome. Yeah. I've seen several already from those that are working on it and sharing it. So it's been a lot of fun. Um, there's something fun about just drawing something together, doing it and knowing others are drawing it with you. I think it's kind of encouraging when that happens. Okay, let me get rid of some of these little clumps in here. You might notice those really start bothering me if I get too many of them. For one thing, they can show up, later on in other subsequent layers that we put down. So I often want to get rid of those. Now, sometimes they don't matter. It depends on how many layers you're going to do on top and how big these little deposits, of a clump of pencil. I don't know what else to call it. A clump, I guess, is the technical term that I'm going with. But yeah, sometimes they just start, if you don't get rid of it, they just start getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So, oh, and Harry, you are joining us in the workshop coming up next weekend. So that's exciting. I can't wait for that. I'll have to, yeah, blobs. There we go, Lisa. That's a good one. Um, that's exactly what they look like, blobs. I'll have to go check and see how many have signed up for that already. If it's not full, then it's close to being full. I don't know. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it'll be a lot of fun. Just drawing that orange shirt, blonde hair, and a blue background. I think it'll be so much fun to do that. Okay, this area I want to lighten up just a little tiny bit. It's not that I want that real light right there, but I don't want it to be. Uh, I don't want it to be dark in an uneven um, way right there. I want it to have a static value that creates a gradation that is very very tapered right here. Okay. Later on, I might go back in there with other colors and show a little bit of some differences in the value. But for right now, this sort of darker value, I want it to be a little more evenly distributed, a little more static, right, than what I'll create later on. Okay, let's see. Looks like I did create a darker value right here, just a little bit, not a lot. We still have some of that debris from the eraser in a couple areas there. I think I got rid of it. So it might be time to actually darken some of this shadow right here. I can at least add a little bit more of this darker value underneath here as we get closer to the lips. Because I'm trying to remember, I'm trying to build this all up evenly and, you know, balance it out and show it at the very same time. Um, if I built up this shadow right here in the top lip before I built up the shadow in the bottom lip, then it, to me, it just could start looking a little off, and it may signal something to my brain that's maybe incorrect. So I just want to think about that. So Harry is asking, will you be adding the lighter colors on the other cheek? Yeah, yeah. So we're going to add more of, so we're going to add Herculaneum red quite a bit over there. Yeah, good question, Harry. And then we're also going to be adding that light flesh 10%. That's going to be one of the key colors over there to depict that skin. This warm white, it helps us a little bit, and it's going to be part of the highlight in certain areas, but it's not a final kind of color, right? And Harry, you might be working on white. I don't know. Um, I know others are working on different surfaces than what I am, and different colors. So, but for what I'm doing, I want to remember that light area will be influenced, at the very least, influenced by the warm white paper. So, oh yeah, you're welcome, Harry. Okay, yeah, this is actually a darker shadow right here. I've got some more of that eraser from earlier. This is a darker shadow that extends down here, right here on the edge of the philtrum, due to the way that the mouth is shaped. So it's tapering away, and the topography of this face and the anatomy right here is going back away from this pinnacle, this little high point right here. So because of that, we've got a darker, much, much darker shadow right here. It's a little deceiving, actually, when you first look at the reference, I think. Um, it doesn't appear that it's as dark as what it really is, but it is much, much darker than what I first um, thought when I was looking at it. Okay. Increase right here. Okay, come back in here and clean up right there. Get rid of these blobs. A little nod to Lisa there. Thanks, Lisa, for that additional term there to call this. All right, and then I come back in here and move my hand just a little bit, different different angle, hit it from a different angle just a little bit, and that'll create a smoother transition right there. Okay, come back up here to this cast shadow from the nose. Add a little bit of a darker value right here. Okay, take a look at it. Yeah, you might remember that we added a very dark value right there. I believe it was probably a blue. Um, if I tapped on that, yeah, I could get rid of it. I don't really want to do that. It's a signal to myself that this is going to be darker right there than probably everywhere else in this cast shadow right here. We will work on making that a little more evenly distributed as we work our way around and include more of the shadows everywhere else. Okay, this is probably dry over here now. It appears to be dry. And one thing I like to do if I'm not sure sometimes is just blow it with air a little bit. And, the one thing I'll do is I'll go back over this area. Probably won't do it today, but I'll go back over it just like this. And I'm barely pressing right there. And I will darken that up even more. But more importantly, I'll create this smooth transition so I don't have like this edge right here from this area into the other areas. And, it'll be fine by the time we've got all the other subsequent layers down. We just want a rich saturation of pigment in this area so that we don't see much white of the paper because this is darker. This is going to be so much darker. It's going to be probably equal to right in here, right over there on the edge. Okay. And remember, we're trying to create this natural looking progression here of the shadows, this flow of shadows, the lights hitting over here. It's naturally going to darken as it moves its way over here. So the darkest area is going to be right over here. Center of interest is going to be the expression and in the eyes and in the face. But we want some logic with the light. So we want the light to be brightest here and then naturally create this gradation where it goes into the darkest shadow right over here. Lightest to darkest, right? Okay. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and stop for the moment. Um, I feel like this is just going at a snail's pace. So we may go ahead and do another stream if we can find the time to do that and try to get more done on this than what we have. But I think this is where we will stop for today, though. Hey, guys, thanks for being out here and joining. And if you're watching the replay, appreciate you being here as well. And we do this live stream every Monday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. So, Eastern Daylight Time right now in the U.S., New York time. So, we'll talk to you later. Take care, everybody. Have a good morning. Bye bye.